Happy Monday, everybody. I hope you're having a good day so far and a good week and a good holiday. Just time to relax, get off work. Not really special for me. I do not work Mondays, so kind of already off. No big deal. I don't intend to do anything but just relax. It's been a very busy week at work. Saturday was so hot and humid, and we were so busy and I was on my feet all day. There was like no time to take a break. At one time, I had like five people in the drive-through and one inside, and I was by myself, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh!" And I was there till 6:30, just finishing tagging after I locked the doors at 5 and sorting tickets, hanging them up because I knew Monday we may get closed in our Dropbox, and Tuesday I'm going to have to go in and get all that stuff tagged, and I think it's going to be busy. But thankfully, Maria has decided to come in and help us on Tuesday, so that's going to be great. But I may be missing a presser. I've been missing a presser 2 days last week. Not feeling well, overheated, dehydration, so I don't know if I'm going to have a presser and I may end up doing it. And it's just so exhausting. So I don't know if I will be having a podcast episode every day this week. It just depends on how things work out. Sometimes life gets in the way. And obviously that's my job. I have to do it. That is how I make my money to pay my bills and everything. But also, I'm also working on a very special 9/11 anniversary episode, and it's going to go up on Saturday at 9 a.m. I've been doing a lot of research, and I think I hope that people will enjoy listening to it. It's a lot more than just about the 9/11 attacks. There's so much more to that day, uh, before it happened, after it happened, um, some very interesting stuff that I have learned, and I just want to share it with everybody. So, my nephew's going to help me work on that and get that up and going for Saturday. So, I hope that you will at least check that out. If you don't check out any of my other podcasts, I hope you check out this one because I think it's going to be very interesting, and I think people are going to be more understanding of why 9/11 happened and the things that transpired after the attacks and um and I want to also pay tribute to the people who died that day. 3,000 people. um and there's also a very interesting story that I've learned that I've never heard until just the other day when I found this article, but I'm not going to tell you about it now. We're going to get into today's episode. I have to run through it quickly. But first, let's start with our daily promise. For if you turn again unto the Lord, your brethren and your children shall find compassion before them that lead them captive, so that they shall come again into this land. For the Lord your God is gracious and merciful, and will not turn away his face from you, if ye return unto him. 2 Chronicles 39. This verse simply states the wonderful character of the God we serve. He is abounding in grace and compassion, as he is faithful to never leave his children. Could there be any better promise? To consider the gracious nature of our God only causes us to rejoice and praise his magnificent name. That is so true. God is so merciful and gracious to us. We are so undeserving of his mercy and his grace, yet he pours it out on us every day. The fact that you wake up every morning and breathe is his mercy and grace granted unto us, whether we deserve it or not. And it's always because he has a plan for our lives, and we should be looking to follow that path. And um I don't know if my podcast is that path that God has led me down, but I do have this feeling. I'm very passionate about it. I may not be super good at it and making videos, but the things that I talk about, the things that I do, I'm passionate about it. And I'm passionate about sharing it with people and showing people the truth and getting them to understand, why it's so important to know about these things. Okay, so what I want to talk about today Um, it's some stuff, the new abortion law. Okay, so this is an analysis of the Texas heartbeat bill. It's from texaslawchanges.com. So on May 19th of 2021, Governor Abbott signed Senate Bill 8, which made it illegal for abortions to take place in the state of Texas after a doctor detects a heartbeat. So now they're going to break it down for us, okay? So it says, whatever criticisms of the bill one may have, the statement of intent is at the very least clear. So these are the 5 claims. A fetus's heartbeat is a primary predictor of whether a fetus will reach a live birth. In the first premise, the author states that 20 weeks, which is the current law prior to September 1st, is well beyond the time when a fetus is viable. The bill overturns existing codes related to health and safety as well as civil procedures. Now, starting to get more controversial, the senator's third argument is that the bill requires that doctors check to see if the fetus has a heartbeat. If an abortion is performed, the doctor must make explicit notes about the patient's medical record. This is an attempt to avoid cases where the doctor will perform an abortion and argue that it was done for the safety of the mother without providing evidence. The doctor in this case will become liable in civil court if they do not perform these actions. So the authors of the bill, it was more than a dozen authors. We're going to go just by last name. You have Hughes, Betancourt, Birdwell, Buckingham, Campbell, Creighton, Hall, Hancock, Huffman, Colkhorst, Lucio, Nelson, Paxton, Perry, Schwertner, Springer, and Taylor. And there's also many co-sponsors as well. But the official author of the bill is Senator Brian Hughes from District 1. So, how does this impact physicians? We've been asked quite a few questions about how this impacts physicians, and this is covered in sections 171.204 and 171.205 of the bill. So these sections make sure that physicians make sure to check for a heartbeat, but also goes a bit further. For example, subsection B of section 171.205, quote, we requires a physician who performs or induces an abortion under circumstances described by subsection A to make written notations in the pregnant woman's medical record of the physician's belief that a medical emergency necessitated the abortion and of the medical condition of the pregnant woman that prevented compliance with this subchapter. So they're going to have to prove that going through the pregnancy would have been harmful to the mother and maybe life-threatening. Uh, I will go ahead and interject into this. Life threatening or not, you would never convince me to kill my baby. I would just have to trust God to do what was necessary, whether that be that the baby doesn't make it naturally or that I don't make it naturally. But you should never kill your baby. It doesn't matter what the situation is. You don't kill your child. So, as this was a Senate bill, it began in the Senate where it was assigned to the State Affairs Committee. This is relevant because Senator Brian Hughes, who introduced the bill as the lead author, is chair of that committee. The bill passed through committee with a vote of seven yeas and 2 noes. So there were some proposed amendments, House amendments that we restart the process. The bill successfully passed through the Senate on March 30th, 2021. Then once it came back with the amendments added by the House, it passed another vote on May 13th, 2021, just before the session ended. So this bill would then go to the House, where it was assigned to the Committee on Public Health. A heated amount of debate took place between the need for the bill. In the end, the bill was able to pass through committee with a 6-4 vote in favor of the bill. The bill first passed through the Senate on March 30th, but 3 amendments were attempted to be added to the bill. One that was successfully added to the bill was by Representative Slauson, added Amendment Number 1. This essentially argues that a civil action cannot be brought by the person who impregnated the abortion patient, more specifically in cases of rape or incest. The amendment argues that in cases of rape or incest, the person who caused the pregnancy cannot sue the victim. After a lengthy exchange between Representative Ramos and Representative Slauson, the amendment successfully passed through the House with a record vote of 136 in favor against just 6 opposed. Now that there are officially amendments added to the bill, it had to go back to the originating chamber for a vote, but not until the amended version passed through the House. The amended version of SB 8 passed the House on May 6 with a vote of 83 in favor to 64 no votes, and 1 member was present and did not vote, which was the Speaker. So, as expected, Governor Abbott signed the bill on May 19th, 2021, 11 days before the session was set to conclude on May 31st. So, this bill became effective as of September 1st of this year. Comparing it to other states, many conservative states are moving towards utilizing a fetus's heartbeat as the moment of life. Laws have been proposed in Georgia, which was blocked in 2019, Alabama, blocked in 2013, and Arkansas, as well as several other states around the country. Currently, only Tennessee has successfully adopted a law that puts a hard limit at 6 weeks. Given the voluminous amount of ink that has been spent on the official opinions of SB 8 around the bill and heartbeat bills in general, we'll just give the feedback from some of the nonprofits and lobbyists around the state. Perhaps one of the state's most committed action groups for pro-life Texas Right to Life was enthusiastic about the bill from the early stages. Meanwhile, groups such as Planned Parenthood Texas Votes and Planned Parenthood Action Fund were vehemently against the bill's passage. Well, of course they were. So, another thing that this bill does. So, say you know a doctor who is going to perform an abortion at 10 weeks and you know of it. You, as a civilian, can sue the doctor, and then if you win the law case, that doctor has to pay you $10,000 in damages. This is why the Texas Supreme Court didn't overturn this bill, is because it's not the state of Texas enforcing these laws. It's civilians. These are civil actions. So, I know a lot of people are saying, but most women don't know that they're pregnant before 6 weeks. Duh. If you didn't get it, that was the point. They wanted to give you no chance to get an abortion. If you didn't get that that was the reason why they did that, then clearly you don't understand why people are pro-life and how we try to do things to keep you from killing your kid. If you don't want a baby, don't have sex. That's the most simplest way that I can put it. Just don't have sex. Okay. So, what we're going to take a look at now is celebrities that are outraged by this legislation. And I don't freaking care. You live in a state where you were permitted to kill your baby. Don't worry about what we do here in Texas. So this is from the Daily Wire, written by Amanda Prestigiacomo. Gosh, I hate butchering names. I'm so sorry. So Hollywood celebrities are up in arms over pro-life legislation in Texas, which effectively bans most abortions after 6 weeks when an unborn baby's heartbeat can be detected. Now, personally, I understand why they chose to do it as a heartbeat bill. In my opinion, and not my opinion, the truth is that life starts at conception, and I think that abortion should be completely abolished. There should be no excuses, no reasons. I don't care what it is. That is my hard line. That is a hill I'm willing to die on. No abortions, period, anywhere. Shouldn't be allowed. Okay. The legislation took effect Wednesday morning after both the Supreme Court and a lower federal court of appeals refused to rule on a demand from Texas abortion providers to stay the law pending further litigation. The laws cued Hollywood to react on social media, which included cries about a supposed lack of women's rights and shows of support for taxpayer-funded Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion mill. Feminist actress Patricia Arquette warned of a Hollywood boycott. Oh, we will not stop until women have full equal rights in every state in America. We will boycott you. We will out-organize you. We will strike you, she wrote via Twitter. Can I just say how psycho it is to sit here and complain and moan about the fact that we are trying to save children's lives and you're trying to advocate the right to kill them? How twisted and sick is your mind that you're trying to fight for the right of a mother to murder her child? I don't get it. Okay, so I stand in solidarity with people in Texas who, as of today, face an extreme 6-week abortion ban. This ban, SB 8, will be the blueprint for bans across the U.S., unless we do something about it, Singer Pink posted, linking to Planned Parenthood. Comedian and left-wing activist Amy Schumer claimed the newest Texas abortion ban gives politicians, neighbors, and even strangers the right to sue those who provide or just help patients get abortion after 6 weeks. The time to fight for our reproductive health and right is now. She too then linked to Planned Parenthood. And just a little clarification. Abortion is not a right. It is not in the Constitution. It's not even alluded to in the Constitution, because the thought of killing your child back in those days would be abhorrent. And just because in the 21st century people seem to think it's okay to murder your baby before they're born and sometimes even after they're born does not make it true. It's still wrong. It's always wrong. It always will be wrong. That will never change. And you will stand before God if you have an abortion and have to answer for the murder of your child. That's as simplest as I can put it. Left-wing activist and frequent abortion promoter Alyssa Milano tweeted, "Let's stop calling it an anti-abortion law and call it what it really is, forced pregnancy." Okay, so to clarify, it's not forced pregnancy. You had sex. You got the consequences of having sex unprotected by getting pregnant. We're not forcing you to be pregnant. We're stopping you from killing your child. No one made you go and have unprotected sex to get pregnant. That was your own choice. And you suffer consequences of that. And the fact that you think that it's okay to kill your baby is a slap in God's face saying, you made a mistake. I shouldn't be pregnant. God doesn't make mistakes. And if you get pregnant, whether you were using protection or not, there's a reason and a plan for it. And you just cut that plan short. Who knows what things that child could have grown up to do? They could have grown up to completely change the world, but you didn't allow it because you're selfish and evil. I didn't intend to get so aggravated, but boy, let me tell you. In another apparent attempt to defend abortion, Milano claimed Texas has a law banning a woman from owning 6 dildos, except the law she is presumably referring to relates to the promotion of obscene devices and was ruled unconstitutional more than a decade ago. So that's not even an issue, so I really don't know. But you know what? Good for Texas for trying to pass a law that you can't promote obscene devices. What you do in your bedroom is your own business. I don't want that promoted all over the place. Gross. So, Big Little Lies actress Reese Witherspoon promoted Planned Parenthood during her condemnation of the pro-life legislation. Quote, "This ban is ridiculous and it's part of a record number of abortion restrictions passed this year. We've declared today a day of action because it's on all of us to step up and fight for reproductive freedom. I stand with the women of Texas who have the constitutional right to make decisions about their health and their own bodies." Okay, I will admit that you have a constitutional right to make decisions about your health of your body. But when you're pregnant, that is not your body. That is a separate body. That is going to be a human life, separate from you. So it's not your body. Stop acting like it is. And all you people that shout, "Oh, my body, my choice, I can murder my baby if I want to." Let me just throw this in there when it comes to getting vaccinated. My body, my choice. And I don't have to do anything I don't want to. And it actually is right when I say it, because the vaccine is going into my body, which makes it my choice. You're saying something that makes no sense because a baby is not your body. I think you need to go back to biology class and learn a little bit about what it is to be pregnant. Actress and Democratic activist Eva Longoria Baston claimed the legislation is a blatant violation to all women, especially women of color. Why? Do you know that more black babies are aborted than any other race? Why are we advocating to kill more black and brown babies? Why do we advocate for that? That's so disgusting. I think it's great when people have babies if they're ready. And I understand people get pregnant when they're not ready. That's what adoption is for. Or, I don't know, grow up and take care of your responsibilities due to the consequences of your choices. I got pregnant when I was 19. I was not married to my ex husband at the time. I was living at home. I was in college, my freshman year of college, and I got pregnant. But do you know what I did? We decided to go ahead and get married instead of waiting. We were going to wait a year before we got married, but we said, you know what? Let's go ahead and get married. We're going to have a family. I moved in with him. He had a job. I continued going to school, and I also got a job. I grew up. I realized we made a choice, and now we have to grow up and take care of the responsibility that God gave us. And now I have 4 beautiful children, and I wouldn't change it for the world. The hardships, the depression that I went through, the divorce, I wouldn't change any of it because I love my kids, and I would never want to think about killing them because I'm not prepared to have kids. That's selfish. It's crazy to witness my home state of Texas pass our nation's most restrictive abortion laws and in doing so take many strides in the wrong direction. Though this is strides in the right direction to correct the course that we have clearly deterred from. Morality. Um, most of all, it's morality. And not advocating for the murder of children. We are actually trying to get back on the right path. If you want to go that way, be my guest. Just get out of Texas. Um, Texas is among the 7 states and territories where the non Hispanic white share of the population is below 50%, according to the Census Bureau. There were 11.4 million Texans who identified as Hispanic in the 2020 census, making the group nearly as large as the non Hispanic white demographic group in the state. And you know that some of those are also illegals because they counted them in the census of 2020, by the way. The actress posted additional tweets directing her followers to donate to abortion funds. Does that not blow your mind? Telling your followers to go support the murder of children. I cannot wrap my mind around this. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Um, Even Chris Cuomo here, he's a moron, and he says that babies don't have a heartbeat at 6 weeks. What an idiot. So he says, this is the allegation. Chris Cuomo asked an abortionist to check the language used by the pro-life movement during the first hour of his September 2nd show on CNN. Quote, the idea of 6 weeks, heartbeat at 6 weeks, does that even exist in science? Is there a heart at 6 weeks? He asked Texas abortionist Allison Gilbert of the Southwestern Women's Surgery Center in Dallas. Gilbert said, quote, there is most certainly not a fully formed heart at that gestational age. It's more of an electric clicker that you can see on the screen, which we refer to as cardiac activity, rather than a heartbeat. Cuomo continued, they call it the heartbeat, Bill, because the heartbeat pulls on your heartstrings. It makes you think, person. That's what has a heartbeat. Okay, so she said that it's not a fully formed heart, but it's an electric clicker that you can see that refers to cardiac activity. What does cardiac refer to? Your heart. Cardiac activity, electric activity, even though it's not a fully formed heart, you just proved that it's a heartbeat at 6 weeks. You proved our point, Allison Gilbert. That is a heartbeat. Even if it's a small heart, even if it's a half formed heart. Do you know that there are people that are born with not fully formed hearts? My ex-husband's niece, she was born with only 3 chambers of her heart, not 4. Are you saying she's not a person because her heart wasn't fully formed when she was born? Is that what you're going to dare try to say? You people are sick and disgusting, and I despise every single person that advocates for this kind of stuff. It's disgusting, it's despicable, you're evil, and you need to have a come to Jesus meeting. Okay, so here's the facts. Cuomo and his guests claim that the human heart is not fully formed at 6 weeks development, and only electronic pulses known as cardiac activity are present. While the leading authorities agree that the embryonic heart begins as a tube and eventually develops a four-chambered heart during gestational week 7, scientific authorities refer to the developing organ as a heart and the pulses as a heartbeat. The Mayo Clinic notes that fetal growth is rapid in the 6th week of pregnancy, just 4 weeks after conception. The heart and other organs are starting to form, and the heartbeat begins to beat. This is from the Mayo Clinic, mind you. During week 5, your baby's heart and a primitive circulatory system will form in the middle layer of cells, the mesoderm. This layer of cells will also serve as the foundation of your baby's bones, ligaments, kidneys, and much of the reproductive system. Although the Mayo Clinic is an exceptional clinic, it is no exception when it comes to affirming the reality of a fetal heartbeat at 6 weeks gestation. At about 6 weeks, your baby's heartbeat can usually be detected, according to the Cleveland Clinic. While the groundbreaking medical facility put heart inside quotation marks when discussing the organ's development at 4 weeks gestation, noting the tiny heart tube will beat 65 times a minute by the end of the 4th week. It did no such thing when the writing of fetal heart development at 6 weeks, nor again at the beginning of month 4 when it notes your baby's heartbeat may now be audible through an instrument called a Doppler. Although not an authority on science, NPR reported usually heartbeat can be detected by vaginal ultrasound somewhere between 6.5 to 7 weeks. The heartbeat may have started around 6 weeks, although some sources place it even earlier at around 3 to 4 weeks after conception. Nor is this language confirmed merely to popular online website designed for mass consumption. Medical textbooks and journals also state that a fetal or embryonic heartbeat begins at approximately the 21st day of development. Quote, the human heart is the first functional organ to develop. It begins beating and pumping blood around day 21 or 22, a mere 3 weeks after fertilization. It originates about day 18 or 19 from the mesoderm and begins beating and pumping blood at about day 21 or 22, according to Anatomy and Physiology by Lindsay M. Biga, a textbook used at Oregon State University. The heart begins to beat on day 21 or 22. The embryonic heartbeat can be detected during the 4th week, approximately 6 weeks after the last normal menstrual period, according to Before We Are Born, Essentials of Embryology and Birth Defects by Keith L. Moore, TBN, Prasad, and Mark G. Torchia. Another one. The human heart is one of the first organs to form and function during embryogenesis. By the end of gestational week 3, the fetal heartbeat becomes vital for oxygen and nutrient distribution. The initiation of the first heartbeat via the primitive heart tube begins at gestational day 22, followed by active fetal blood circulation by the end of week 4, according to a review article in the peer-reviewed journal Fetal Diagnosis and Therapy written by Cheryl Mai June Tan and Adam James Lewandowski. Another one. During the 4th week of development or the 6th week after the previous menstrual cycle, the heart is beating, according to the most recent edition of the textbook, The Human Body in Health and Illness by Barbara Herlihy. So the verdict. Former abortionist Carol Everett once described how abortion providers use semantic issues of science to promote abortion to young children. You have to become the expert in their lives, and you have to separate them from their parents and their values, she said. The embryonic heartbeat begins to form in an unborn child, creating activity that scientific authorities refer to as a heartbeat. It is hardly unscientific for pro-life advocates to follow their example. Okay, so yes, we're talking day 21. Your child has a heartbeat 3 weeks in, but you can detect it at 6 weeks. So it's beating long before the 6-week mark. And you know why? Because life begins at conception. That is the truth. The Bible says it, and if you don't believe the Bible, that's your problem. It's still murder. It's still wrong. When we come back from this break, I need to get some water. When we come back from this break, there's a couple things that I want to show you, and I think it's very important to know this kind of stuff. This is not going to be about what's going on with the abortion bill, but it is going to be on abortion. That is exactly what this episode is about, because it is a very, very important issue, and it's one that conservatives should constantly be working towards abolishing altogether. So this is an article I wanted to take a look at. We've already discussed how disgusting and wicked people are that are advocating for the right to murder their child. But this one was very disgusting to me. I was appalled by what I heard. So there's a leftist that says that the Texas heartbeat law may mean kids with Down syndrome won't be aborted. So he's ticked off because this is going to prevent Down syndrome babies from being aborted. What a sick, twisted lunatic. Let's see what he has to say. Center for the Study of Partisanship and Ideology president and a parent abortion advocate, Richard Hanania, weighed in among critics of the Supreme Court's decision to allow the Texas heartbeat law, which may effectively ban abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy, noting that stricter abortion laws may mean that more children will be born with Down syndrome. Can you imagine more children with Down syndrome filling the world? Oh, how awful that must be. What? When I went to middle school, I was in middle school in 4th and 5th grade. I think once a week, or once, it might have been every day at a certain time in the class, but it may have been once a week. I'm not sure. Children with disabilities that were slow, particularly the 2 classes I had, 4th and 5th grade, they were children with Down syndrome. And they came and joined the class so that they could be a part and be included in regular activities instead of just in their special classrooms. And these people were very sweet. William and Megan. You won't be able to figure out who they were because you won't even know where I went to school. Not like you will anyway. William and Megan, very sweet children. And I have to say, I think that people with Down syndrome are probably more pure than other people because they don't have the same mechanisms that we have, that were fully developed. But the thought that you're upset because you can't abort babies with Down syndrome, there are no words. There just are no words. Okay, I'm going to call him Richard because I can't pronounce his last name. Although Richard did not appear to make a value judgment on the matter in his tweet, he is clearly supportive of laws allowing parents to elect to abort a differently abled child, including a child with Down syndrome. And he goes on to suggest that the whole developed world will look down on Americans who allow such barbarism. So now you're saying that it's barbaric to allow a child to live just because they may be disabled? That's barbaric? What is barbaric is killing an innocent child. Child sacrifice. That is barbaric. Child sacrifice on the altar of your selfishness. Quote, you can't screen for Down syndrome before about 10 weeks, and something like 80% of Down syndrome fetuses are aborted. If red states ban abortion, we could see a world where they have 5 times as many children with Down syndrome and similar numbers for other disabilities. The horror that must, people must be so horrified at that thought. And personally, I think if you're having your child tested for disabilities while you're pregnant, I would never do it. You know what? I just want to have my child, and whatever happens, happens. If they have Down syndrome, fine. I don't want to know ahead of time. I just want to go through a pregnancy and have a child be born and everything just be naturally learned as the progress goes on. And the fact that people are testing their children for disabilities because they're going to kill them if they're disabled, that's sick. And I think one day you'll be confronted by that child you killed. I truly believe that. I believe that that child is going to confront you and you are going to feel so guilty for what you did to them. And you should. You should feel guilty. You should have trauma from this. This should cause you to have a mental breakdown and be depressed. Because anybody who just kills an innocent child should not be able to walk around without a conscience and know that they did something evil. You should feel bad. And a lot of women do. He later insisted that he was simply making an empirical observation, but in a second tweet, he added that America, quote, could be outliers in the whole developed world. There are already negative stereotypes of Americans in these states, talking about the South, rednecks, retards. One can imagine it getting much more extreme. What if they also ban genetic engineering and embryo selection while other places go ahead? Yep, we should ban that too. You shouldn't be able to engineer your genetics for your child. You shouldn't be able to select an embryo perfect for what you want. That's not how it works. God gives you what He gives you, and you should be happy and you should cherish that child no matter what the issues with them are. The fact that you are so selfish that you wouldn't want a child because they're disabled, you shouldn't have kids at all. You should be castrated and told you can't have children because you don't deserve children. He later suggested that conservatives might be scandalized by the fruits of their support for abortion restrictions when a larger social safety net is acquired, and that liberals might change their minds if their tax dollars were rerouted to states with lots of new Down syndrome children. Quote, will they maintain their belief in a small safety net and lower government spending in such a world? Would liberals change their minds about government spending if it ends up going to states that have much higher costs due to these laws? Many interesting things to think about, he said. I'm perfectly happy with a world with more people with Down syndrome in it. Oh, conservative podcaster Beth Stuckey fired back. I'm sorry you aren't. Big eugenicist energy. Others pointed out that Richard likely wasn't alone in his perception of how abortion bans might play out. Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger was a known eugenicist after all. Quote, it's helpful when the pro-abortion movement is this clear about their motivations, Republican strategist Matt Whitlock noted. Quote, this is the worst take I've read in a long time, commentator Calvin Robinson added. People with Down syndrome are people, Richard. They are loved and valued like everyone else. Show some compassion. You're talking about human beings as if they are undesirable quantities to be eradicated through eugenics. Wicked. You know that's how the Holocaust started, by the way, because they thought they were impure, undesirables, not good enough, not human. So what are you supposing a genocide of disabled children? Yeah, you are, because you're already committing it. That is a genocide of disabled children. 80% of them are aborted. That's genocide. Others suggested that Richard must not know many pro-lifers. Yes, pro-lifers believe everyone, even those with Down syndrome or other physical and intellectual disabilities, have the right to life. And most pro-lifers believe more needs to be done for parents and families in these difficult situations to help them care and raise these kids, Jerry Dunleavy noted. Roted. I agree. These are people. They're just as valuable as the next. And we don't get to decide who is valuable to society and who is not. That's not our choice. And like I'll say it again, it is genocide when you are aborting disabled children because you don't think that they have value, or when you're aborting black and brown babies because you think they're undesirable non-humans. You may not say that's what you're doing, but that is the truth of what it is. There's no other way to put it. So, what I wanted to do, I found from liveaction.org. Horrific little known abortion method. Cut the umbilical cord and wait for cardiac arrest. Now, there are many different types of abortions that they do. From nrlc.org, which is National Right to Life. So some abortion techniques. Okay, so the first trimester, it's surgical. Suction aspiration or vacuum curettage is the abortion technique used in most first trimester abortions. A powerful suction tube with a sharp cutting edge is inserted into the womb through the dilated cervix. The suction dismembers the body of the developing baby and tears the placenta from the wall of the uterus, sucking blood, amniotic fluid, placental tissue, and fetal parts into a collection bottle. Great care must be taken to prevent the uterus from being punctured during this procedure, which may cause hemorrhage and necessitate further surgery. Also, infection can easily develop if any fetal or placental tissue is left behind in the uterus. This is the most frequent post-abortion complication. Then you have first trimester chemical. So, while many people focus solely on RU486, the so-called French abortion pill, the RU486 technique actually uses two powerful synthetic hormones with the generic names of mifepristone and misoprostol. Prostol, I don't know how to say it, to chemically induce abortions in women 5 to 9 weeks pregnant. So the procedure requires at least 3 trips to the abortion facility. The first visit, you're given a physical exam, and if she has no obvious contraindications or red flags such as smoking, asthma, blah, 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 she swallows the RU486 pills. This blocks the action of proestrogen, the natural hormone vital to maintaining the rich nutrient lining of the uterus. The developing baby starves as the nutrient lining disintegrates. So the second visit, which is 36 to 48 hours later, the woman is given a dose of artificial prostaglandins, usually misoprostol, which initiates uterine contractions and usually causes the embryonic baby to be expelled from the uterus. Most women about during the 4-hour waiting period at the clinic, but about 30% abort later at home, work, etc., as many as 5 days later. And then a third visit, about 2 weeks later, determines whether the abortion has occurred or a surgical abortion is necessary to complete the procedure, which is 5 to 10% of all cases. There are several serious, well-documented side effects associated with RU486, including prolonged up to 44 days and severe bleeding, nausea, vomiting, pain, and even death. At least one woman in France died, while others there suffered life-threatening heart attacks from the technique. In U.S. trials conducted in 1995, one woman is known to have nearly died after losing half her blood and requiring emergency surgery. Long-term effects of the drug have not yet been sufficiently studied, but there are reasons to believe that RU486 could affect not only a woman's current pregnancy, but her future pregnancies as well, potentially inducing miscarriages or causing severe malformations in later children. Okay, surgical, second trimester. So this is up to about 24 weeks. It's similar to the DNC, but the difference is that the forceps with sharp metal jaws are used to grasp parts of the developing baby, which are then twisted and torn away. This continues until the child's entire body is removed from the womb. Because the baby's skull has often hardened to bone by this time, the skull must sometimes be compressed or crushed to facilitate removal. If not carefully removed, sharp edges of the bones may cause cervical laceration. Bleeding from the procedure may be profuse. So Dr. Warren Hearn, a Boulder, Colorado abortionist who has performed a number of D&E abortions, says they can be particularly troubling to clinic staff and worries that this may have an effect on the quality of care a woman receives. Hearn also finds them traumatic for doctors too, saying, quote, "There is no possibility of denial of an act of destruction by the operator. It is before one's eyes. The sensation of dismemberment flows through the forceps like an electric current," end quote. Okay, there's a picture here. I will blur it, but oh, it ain't gonna lead us to it. That's okay. I have pictures somewhere else. So then you have second and third trimester abortions, which are installation methods, and it's chemical. So these are known as saline amniocentesis, or salting out, or hypertonic saline. This technique is used after 16 weeks of pregnancy when enough fluid has accumulated in the amniotic fluid sac surrounding the baby. A needle is inserted through the mother's abdomen, and 50 to 250 milliliters, which is about as much as a cup, of amniotic fluid is withdrawn and replaced with a solution of concentrated salt. The baby breathes in, swallowing the salt, and is poisoned. The chemical solution also causes painful burning and deterioration of the baby's skin. Usually after about an hour, the child dies. The mother goes into labor about 33 to 35 hours later after installation and delivers a dead, burned, and shriveled baby. About 97% of mothers deliver their dead babies within 72 hours. Hypertonic saline may initiate a condition in the mother called consumption coagulopathy, or uncontrolled blood clotting through the body, with severe hemorrhage as well as other serious side effects on the central nervous system. Seizures, coma, or death may also result from saline inadvertently injected into the woman's vascular system. And then the last surgical one for the second and third trimester. These types of abortions are obscure clinical sounding euphemisms such as dilation and extraction, right? The DNX, or intact D&E, which makes the realities of how the abortions are actually performed. This procedure is used to abort women who are 20 to 32 weeks pregnant, or even later into pregnancy. Guided by ultrasound, the abortionist reaches into the uterus, grabs the unborn baby's leg with forceps, and pulls the baby into the birth canal except for the head, which is deliberately kept just inside the womb. At this point in a partial birth abortion, the baby is alive. Then the abortionist jams scissors into the back of the baby's skull and spreads the tips of the scissors apart to enlarge the wound. After removing the scissors, a suction catheter is inserted into the skull and the baby's brains are sucked out. The collapsed head is then removed from the uterus. And just remember that babies born at 23 weeks, they usually survive. And even younger than that, I think there's one at 20 weeks that has survived. But this is legal because the baby's not born technically. That's why they leave their head in the womb. It's not a born child yet. So it's technically an abortion, but it's not. This is murder. And if you're okay with going into a clinic and having your child, they feel pain. I just want you to know that. Your child feels every bit of pain that is inflicted on it to kill it because you are a selfish, evil person. You are a sick woman if you allow this to happen to your child. I don't care if you're ready for a child or not. Quit having sex. That's all I can say. Or let someone else raise that child. You can't suck it up for 9 months to allow that child to have a decent life with someone else who may want them. My personal opinion, if you perform an abortion or you seek out to have an abortion performed on you, you should be legally held liable for the murder of that child. End of story. It is a crime to kill people. And that is what you're doing. You're killing a baby. You deserve to be punished for it. So, from live action, this other technique where they wait for the baby to go into cardiac arrest, it's exsanguination, I think that's how you say it, is a little known form of abortion no one seems to talk about until recently. By definition, it is the action of draining a person, animal, or organ of blood. Apparently, based on the testimony of an abortionist who has aborted preborn children for 50 years, it's also a way to kill children before they are born by cutting the umbilical cord and waiting. Abortionist Dr. Forrest Smith says he has committed over 50,000 abortions and recently testified in support of pro-life Undercover Center for Medical Progress investigators David Daleiden and Sandra Marriott during their criminal preliminary hearing. Smith stated that babies are no question being born alive so their organs can be harvested. During his testimony, Smith admitted that abortion is killing, saying, quote, "You can kill a human being, which I admit abortion is, but you have to do it in certain ways," end quote. One of the ways Planned Parenthood abortionists are allegedly aborting children in order to secure intact bodies and organs to sell researchers is the illegal partial birth abortion, which is what we talked about just before this. Smith, however, seems uninterested in committing the illegal abortion procedure and found a way to get around the law, exsanguination. According to LifeSite News, Smith testified that he extracts and cuts the umbilical cord and then, quote, watches with my ultrasound, end quote, for the preborn child's heartbeat to stop beating. He said that this usually takes 6.5 to 7 minutes. It's an abortion procedure he has been using for 25 years, and he's not the only one. Former Planned Parenthood Metro Health Center abortionist Leah Torres made headlines in 2018 with a now deleted tweet stating that fetuses can't scream because she transects the cord first, so there's really no opportunity. Torres had also worked for Rocky Mountain Women's Health Center at this time, and I remember that tweet. While the infamous tweet wasn't specific about which cord she cut, the spinal, the umbilical, or the vocal, Torres later cleared up with the follow-up tweet. "Oh, yeah, no, the cord is the umbilical cord. That's basic anatomy. Come on." Torres lost her job because the employer said she violated a provision of her contract requiring to uphold a professional reputation. She sued 3 media outlets for defamation, saying she was forced to relocate out of Utah to find a job. Okay, so 100% of the babies in the study were successfully killed and died within 11 minutes of the cord being cut. The babies older than 20 weeks took longer to die, on average, around 9 minutes, than the babies younger than 20 weeks, which is around 4 minutes. 4.6% of women had minor complications, and 0.3% had major complications during or after the abortion. The study concluded that umbilical cord transection immediately prior to a D&E is a feasible, um, efficacious, and safe way to induce fetal demise without performing additional procedures. It is possible to safely destroy an innocent human being. So, I wanted to possibly share a story. Uh, I don't. These are whistleblowers talk about abortion horror stories. This is from OperationRescue.org. This one is from Janice. I do, however, agree with you on one thing now, and that is that Dr. Tiller's abortion clinic should be closed. After some deep soul searching and many sleepless nights up thinking about the care I received there, I agree it's not right. I live in Canada, a country with some of the world's best healthcare and free healthcare at that. Well, that's a lie. I think I was so grateful to him, abortionist George R. Tiller, because he was able to terminate a pregnancy for me because I couldn't face the results of that pregnancy. Don't get me wrong, I'm not some girl off the street who got pregnant and decided in my third trimester that all of a sudden was not ready to be a parent. I was newly married, had a new home, and have been helping raise my stepson since he was 6 months old. We were beyond elated to be having this baby. We loved her from the minute we found out she was coming. We had the nursery all painted and basically were waiting. I was due to have her on the 15th of January of 2004. It wasn't until the 23rd of December that it was noticed that there was something wrong during a routine ultrasound. The next day, me and my husband were sent to a hospital. The hospital had the best parental diagnosis and medical genetics program in the country. It was then, after a bunch of tests, that they were able to tell me that our daughter, whom we were expecting in less than a month, more than likely had a complete trisomy 22, a condition incompatible with life. An MRI the day after Christmas confirmed that this was true. I was then faced with two decisions. I could wait and deliver any time and watch my child expire before my eyes while I stood there helplessly and did nothing, or I could go see this doctor in Wichita who would terminate the pregnancy for me so that I would have not to have to go through that. I was distraught and I didn't know what to do. So, now, most of my trip to Kansas is a blur. This is because from the time you arrive at Dr. Tiller's clinic, you are on some form of drugs. You're in a daze. Though I remember a lot, there is a lot I don't remember. I will never, however, forget the day I was given the digoxin shot through my stomach into the heart of my baby. It took me 45 minutes to calm down enough so that Dr. Tiller had and one of his nurses could come in to do this. I was hysterical because after this there was no turning back. By telling them I was ready for them to come in and do it, I was telling them that it was okay to kill my daughter. They sedated me and then did it. Now I have spoken to many other women who have been to Dr. Tiller's clinic. None of them were sedated for the procedure. I woke up and my baby is dead. After that, I was given a prescription for a drug called pentoxine, while all other women were given a prescription for something similar to Tylenol 3. It has codeine in it. I was then sent to have a laminaria packed up into me. While inserting this, they broke my water accidentally. I was then shipped off to La Quinta. This hotel chain has since disassociated themselves with Tiller, where my labor began. Okay, so by this time it was about 1 a.m. and my contractions were 1 minute apart. My mom called Edna several times screaming at her. She then came again and gave me another shot and sedated me. All the while I was still taking the pills every hour on the hour. By the time the second round of the sedation had worn off, I could no longer stand because of the drugs and because of the extreme pressure on my pelvis. I remember saying I needed to go to a hospital. I didn't care about Dr. Tiller's clinic. I needed another doctor. My mom was crying and she went into the hall. When she opened the door, the man in the next room heard me crying and screaming. He was a doctor. I thought I was saved. Turns out the doctor in the next room was Dr. Leroy Carthart. He had just arrived and checked into the hotel. He came in and examined me. Immediately, he then called Edna and he exchanged some harsh words with, and he said I needed to go to the clinic now. I do remember a few minor things about the delivery, but because of the anesthetic, I hardly remember anything at all. I was sent back to the hotel at 9 a.m. I returned to the clinic around 10 a.m. the next day for a checkup. It was at this time I was allowed to hold my daughter and have her baptized. They recommended I did not look at her because of all the disfigurement she had due to the trisomy 22. They suggested it would be better for me to just think of her as the perfect little baby I had imagined she would be. Now, as my story is almost over, but there's a little more to it. The prescription I was given there had a refill on it, but it cost $75 to fill this, so I figured I would wait until the next day when I got home to refill this prescription because it only cost me 35 cents. So I had been home for 2 days and had not slept. I was vomiting, I had nosebleeds, the shakes, the sweats, and uncontrollable spasms. I thought this was because of stress, so I went to see my doctor and he wanted to run tests. I agreed. On my way out his door, I remembered my prescription, so I gave it to him and asked for the refill. He looked at me with a very strange look on his face and asked me to sit down. He explained to me that this drug was illegal in Canada and he could not give it to me, and that basically it was a synthetic heroin, and he couldn't believe the amount of milligrams in each pill. I then explained to him that I was told to take two and then every hour. He then did quick blood tests, and it confirmed that the levels of pentazoxine in my system now, let alone 2 days ago, should have killed me. I was not having all these symptoms from stress. They were my body's way of trying to detox me. I am no longer grateful for Dr. Taylor helping me. He didn't help me at all. I wish now I would have had the courage to deliver my little girl and let her get even just one breath of air before she passed, to let her see my face just once before she passed. I would never have that chance now, and I was always have to live with the decision I made and the nightmares of what happened to me in Kansas. All I have now is my little 6 pound 2 ounce daughter's ashes in a tiny silver engraved box in my living room. I have a small box of pictures and footprints and a receiving blanket with green goop on it that I can't bring myself to wash because I think it will wash her away. I still cry every day and I miss her every day. Dr. Tiller didn't help me. He robbed me and I let him. Women need to know what goes on there. People need to be educated on what on inside his clinic. And these are all the same. They're all horrible experiences. People have trauma, PTSD afterwards. They can't live with the guilt. They are burdened down and depressed by the guilt of what they did. Now, the last thing that I want to do is I want to take a look at some pictures and show you what it is that killing your baby looks like. It's not all clean and neat like these. Hey, can I call you in just like 10 minutes? I'm recording my podcast. And I'm almost finished. Okay. Okay. So this is what it looks like. Sorry, my thing quit recording for my audio only side. So if I jumped around and didn't complete a sentence, I'm sorry. I don't remember where I left off. Okay. I am going to blur some of these out because they are graphic, but I just I think people need to see it. So I think it's very important. Might look it up this way. Okay. So this is a photo of an abortion. This is the type of abortion where they take the forceps and cut them up piece by piece and pull them out. Um, this is an aborted baby's hand. I know it's graphic, you guys. I know it is. So this is a very early on abortion. The child's head is only the size of a quarter. So of course this one is definitely not fully developed, but it's still a child. You can see hands, you can see the bones, you can see the eyes. This is what it looks like when you allow someone to go in to your womb and kill your child. It's not pretty. This baby, the whole baby is the size of a quarter, a little bit bigger than a quarter. The legs are pulled off, but you can still see the formation. You can still see the hands, the feet, the body. This one, you can start seeing the intestines forming, their organs developing, their brain. You can see the formation of their face coming together. This one here. That is a child. How could you do that to your child? How sick and wicked must you be? Why these pictures were taken in the first place, I don't know if it was to show exactly what an abortion looks like instead of the neat, pretty picture. I don't know if that's what they intended to do. I don't know what the point of these pictures were, but they are definitely needed to be seen. This is not a game. This is not just a clump of cells. This is your child, and you have killed them, and you deserve to be punished for it. One day you will be punished for it. God will handle that punishment. But legally, you should suffer consequences for murder. Everybody else does. Also should you. That's my hardline stance on it. I will not back down on it. I don't care what anybody thinks. Abortion should be completely abolished. I am anti-murder of babies. And you deserve to go to prison if you perform an abortion or if you allow a doctor to perform one on you. You both should go to prison. That's what you deserve. I don't like looking at them. It's heartbreaking. But like I said, it's very necessary. I'm going to leave it right here for today. I want to thank y'all for joining me. I want to tell you that I hope you continue to have a good weekend. Enjoy your holiday off. Don't forget, you can find me on Facebook, Lauren Collins. I just got to say something. Instagram, gotta say something 21. You can email me, gotta say something 21 at gmail.com. And you can go and subscribe to the podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Google, Apple, Stitcher, wherever you like to listen to your podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like this video and share it. I feel that this is a very, very important video that needs to get out to as many people as possible. And also, you can leave me a comment. You can disagree with me. You can agree with me. I'd like to hear your thoughts. And also, please subscribe to the channel. All your support means a lot to me. And then you can click the notification bell to see every time I upload a new video. I would appreciate that. And don't forget, please go subscribe to The Scott Ford Show. Isaac Hayes, the conservative Cajun, the Cajun conservative, my bad. And his Christian podcast, Brothers Just Searching, Nate Savage at Savage5050, and TB's Rob is Unwoke. And enjoy the rest of your day. God bless.